Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Dear viewers, welcome to our new program, The Quran and Science. This is your host, Tamer Mumtaz. Today with us is the Most Honorable Professor Dr. Zaghloul Al-Najjar, Head of the Committee of Scientific Facts in the Glorious Quran, Supreme Council in Islamic Affairs. Also participating with us in the discussion is Brother Fuad from South America and Brother Mustafa from Egypt. Today we'll be discussing why and the reasons and the importance of discussing such a topic. Dr. Zaghloul will explain to us this.
In the name of Allah, our Creator, the Creator of the universe and of everything that's in it, I greet you all in our Islamic way. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May Allah's peace, blessings and mercy be with you all. And to begin this discussion, I would like to emphasize the fact that the glorious Quran is the only form of divine guidance within the hands of man today that has been kept intact in exactly the same language of revelation, the Arabic language, preserved by the will of the Creator, word to word and letter to letter, for more than 14 centuries. And the promise to preserve it by the divine being is absolute, and this preservation will remain until the end of this world, so that the Quran can remain the only testimony above all human beings until the end of this existence. Being the word of the Creator in its divine purity, it has to be absolutely true in everything it tells, everything it deals with, every problem it discusses, because it is the word of the Creator. And we know that the Quran is not a book of science. It's a book of divine guidance to man in areas that cannot be correctly addressed by man, such as the area of faith, the area of the acts of worshipping, the area of the moral code, and the area of the code of transactions with others. And if we discuss any of these areas, we can see in it enough testimony to justify our sayings that this is the divine word in its divine purity. Yet Allah knows that time will come when people will know more about the universe and about themselves, when science and technology will develop at a peak not paralleled by anything before, and people will be fascinated by this scientific knowledge. So they will always ask for the scientific proof. Because of this, the Holy Quran contains an immense quantity of cosmic verses, verses that speak about the earth, the moon, the sun, the constellations, the galaxies, many of the phenomena of our existence, wind, clouds, rain, many plants and their products, many animals and their products, the successive stages of the embryonic development of man. And one would wonder, why should a book of divine guidance contain such an immense quantity of scientific information? If we read these verses, we can see clearly that these verses did not come down to us as pieces of scientific information per se. They come in the testimony of testifying to the divine nature of the Creator, that the Creator of this universe is omnipotent, omnipresent, omniwise, that he has created everything with a perfection that cannot be paralleled by human efforts. It can also testify to the unity of this Creator without parallels, partners, or similitudes. It also testifies to the fact that inasmuch as he has created this wonderful universe out of nothing, he is capable of annihilating it and resurrecting it again. And the area of resurrection has been highly debated by atheists, agnostics, unbelievers in general, because one of the calamities of our time is that man tried to assess the capacity of the Creator within the human capacity itself. And of course, the basic rule in Islam is that you have to exalt Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala above all his creation. He has got certain qualities, certain divine qualities that cannot be compared by any of the qualities of his creation. And you have to exalt your Creator above all what you see around yourself, all what you know, all what you can do. And because of this, Allah is giving these cosmic verses to testify to the fact that in as much as He has created, He is capable of annihilating His creation and resurrecting it. And again, I see in these verses an address to the people of our time, this time of scientific and technological advances unparalleled in human history. There is enough testimony in that book that can prove to every sane person that this book cannot be the work of man. It is the word of the Creator in its divine purity. And because of this, I think we have to bring these cosmic verses to the notice of everybody, because one of the main challenges Muslims are facing today is that most people of the world do not believe in the prophecy of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They do not believe in the divinity of the Holy Quran. They assume that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was a genius and he wrote the Quran. So if I tell anybody, any sane person, that this book that was revealed more than 14 centuries ago to an unlettered prophet in an unlettered society contains that immense amount of scientific facts, I do not think that any sane person can assume that there is any source for this huge quantity of facts other than the Creator Himself. And that's why I do believe that the large number of cosmic verses in the Holy Quran are also an address to the people of our time to give them enough proof that the Quran is the word of the Creator in its divine purity, and that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was not speaking out of his own mind. He was passing the divine message in its divine purity, in sincerity and devotion that cannot be debated. Because of this, we have to explain these verses. One other point is that the Quran was sent down to us to understand it, and we have to understand it within the human capacity. And we know that the Quran was revealed in Arabic, and we have to understand it in the language of revelation, in Arabic language, because if you translate, you cannot convey the divine message in its divine entirety. You will translate your understanding, what you have understood of the verse. But of course, one of the most miraculous aspects of the Quran is that the verse comes in a few words. Every generation can see in these words a meaning. And these meanings unfold with time. They expand with time. So that the Quran can remain encompassing human knowledge, whatever limit that human knowledge can go to. And I dare say that we have to understand the Quran in Arabic. Yet the cosmic verses, I cannot use the language alone to understand the meaning of a cosmic verse. You have to use scientific facts so that you can understand two things. First of all, you can understand the meaning of the verse in a more complete way. And secondly, you can prove the precedence of the Holy Quran by stating this fact, which was not reached to by human efforts except a few decades ago. And that's why I do believe that it's high time for Muslims to take care of these verses and try to study them in every capacity that's possible, every few verses in a particular field: astronomy, geology, botany, zoology, medicine, embryology, climatology. You have to use specialists to look into these verses within the context of what science has given us, and then explain it after understanding the meaning of every single Arabic word in the verse. And then add the scientific dimension so that you can see the full meaning of the verse, and you can perceive clearly the precedence of the Holy Quran with centuries, with this fact, before any human effort has ever reached to know anything about it. This is the main reason why we take care of these verses and try to explain them to people, to Muslims in the first place, so that they can understand the meaning of the Quran, which is an Islamic obligation by itself, and to non-Muslims to testify to them that this is the word of the Creator in its divine purity, and to testify to the prophethood of Muhammad, peace be upon him. I think I have made this clear to you, and if you have any queries or questions to be raised, and I know that there are many questions to be raised, I would be more than delighted to answer them.
Yes, actually, I have a question here.
Yes.
I noticed what you're saying. You mentioned a few times, you mentioned the word facts.
Yes.
Right? And so basically what you're saying right now, what you're trying to compare the verses of the Quran against the scientific facts, not the scientific theories.
No. You see, we have two approaches in dealing with cosmic verses in the Holy Quran. The first approach is tafsir, and tafsir exegesis, trying to understand the meaning of the verse. And if you try to understand the meaning of the verse, you can succeed in doing that, or you may not succeed. So we have to be absolutely careful, because we are dealing with the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the words of the Creator himself. So we try to use scientific facts as much as possible. But because science has not reached the level of facts in every sphere, I can use theories, you see, in the exegesis, in the tafsir alone, because I'm trying to understand the meaning of the verse. And if there is an accepted theory in the existing world, I have to use it.
Yes.
Even if this theory has proved to be wrong, this will not belittle the glory of the Holy Quran. It will reflect on the Mufassir himself, on the person who did this exercise. And people who try to explain the Quran linguistically or historically or in other ways did succeed in cases and did fail in others, you see. So in tafsir, in exegesis, I can use facts as long as they are available. But if they are not available, and there is a dominant theory that is accepted by the scholars in the field, I can use it. But in the area of testifying to the scientific eminence of the Quran, the scientific inimitability of the glorious Quran, I cannot use theories, because this is a stand of somebody challenging the world, Muslims and non-Muslims alike, that this book that was revealed 14 centuries ago to an unlettered Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in a society that was, the majority of it are unlettered, to contain such facts, there can never be any source for it other than the Creator himself. To do this, you have to be on solid grounds. I cannot use a theory, because if theory collapses, I have defeated my purpose.
That's right.
So I only use scientific facts. And once science reaches the level of a fact, or level of a law, scientific law, it does not go back on its own findings, you see. It can expand, you can add to it, but it does not refute what it has proved. So in the area of scientific excellence of the Holy Quran, I cannot use theories, and I have to use only scientific facts.
Dr. Zaghloul,
yes.
Thank you very much. Inshallah, we have a question, but
Yeah.
after the break, you will tell us how this study has changed the lives of Muslims or non-Muslims after it was revealed. Okay? So we'll be
Barakallah
together after the break.
Okay, barakallah.
We're still at the dentist clinic. Dr. Ashraf is our host. Dr. Ashraf, now you have the patient, and we've been talking about the sterilization and the care for the tools, either the disposables and the non-disposables. And one of the very important, most advanced tools for the dentist is the microscope.
And one of these things is very important, that we can take this image and we can freeze it so that my patient can join me and discuss with me the different treatment options that we have.
Being exposed to burn is considered to be a catastrophe, and some people would have the burn at home, some others would be exposed to it in the streets and at work as a factory or other places. And learning how to deal with the burn and how to manage the case, either going to the doctor or just to manage it as an emergency and then going to a specialized person to deal with it, is a mandatory for all of us.
This is one of the
Most
most dangerous causes of burn, because I'm not only exposed to the heat, I'm exposed to smokes. These smokes may aid to the injury of the skin.
Welcome back, and continuing our discussion with Professor Dr. Zaghloul Al-Najjar. We raised the question before the break, is from your experience, how did this study change the lives of the believers and the disbelievers?
You see, we are living in a world of materialism and disbelief. Many people are drifting away from knowing their Creator and knowing their true message in life. Who are they? Who has created them and sent them into this world? What's their message in it? How can they fulfill that message to the best of their abilities? And what's for them after this life? The world has taken people away because this is the culture, the purely materialistic culture we are living in. And because of this, we as Muslims are asked to affirm our beliefs by by finding these scientific proofs in the Holy Quran, although most Muslims do believe that the Quran is as perfect as you can never imagine. You cannot find a single mistake with the Quran, linguistically, historically, scientifically, religiously. You cannot find a mistake. So Muslims believe that. But there are many other billions of people who do not believe in the divine nature of the Holy Quran. And that's why we are asked by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to convey that message to them in the most pleasant, kind, tender way as we can. And again, I do dare say that within this materialistic world, some Muslim youngsters may drift away as well, because the current is very strong. Yeah. And to affirm Muslims on their belief, we have to prove to them by many ways, not only through science, but through many, many different ways, that the Quran is the word of the Creator, is divine purity, and that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam is the seal of that long chain of messengers and prophets sent by God for the divine guidance of man. And that's why, you see, I have 3 verses in the Quran that can affirm and can prove this process. We read in Surah Al-An'am, لِكُلِّ نَبَأٍ مُسْتَقَرٍ وَسَوْفَ تَعْلَمُونَ. For every single piece of information in the Holy Quran, there is a time limit, and verily you will know it. Meaning that many of the verses in the Quran will unfold with time, will explain facts that were not known before. And we are living in the era of science and technology, and of course to find scientific proofs in the Quran that can testify for its divine purity, this is one of these unfolded news. We can also read in Surah Sad 2 verses that can testify to this. The Quran reads, إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا ذِكْرٌ لِلْعَالَمِينَ وَلَتَعْلَمُنَّ نَبَأَهُ بَعْدَ حِينٍ. Verily, this is a reminder for the worlds, for everybody. This is a reminder for the worlds. وَلَتَعْلَمُنَّ نَبَأَهُ بَعْدَ حِينٍ. And verily, you will know its truth sooner or later. So this also points to the fact that the meanings of these cosmic verses in the Quran will keep on unfolding all the time. And that's why Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is quoted to have said, إن هذا القرآن لا تنتهي عجائبه ولا يخلقه على كثرة الرد. This Quran, its miracles can never come to an end. And the more you read it, the more you will find in it something that tells you it's still new, it's still virgin. You can still find lots of information in it. And that's why in Surah As-Saffat, Surah Fussilat, I'm sorry, we read what Allah says, بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم سنريهم آياتنا في الآفاق وفي أنفسهم حتى يتبين لهم أنه الحق أولم يكفي بربك أنه على كل شيء شهيد. Verily, we shall show them our signs in the horizons and in their own souls until it becomes manifest to them that this is the truth. Is it not enough that your Lord does witness above all things? So I can see in these three verses an indication that the unfolding of the cosmic verses in the Holy Quran can remain throughout time until the end of this world, a living testimony that this book cannot be the work of man, but it is the word of the Creator in its divine purity. And the mere fact that the Holy Quran was preserved in its entirety in the same language of revelation, word to word and letter to letter, is a testimony as well, because we do not find any other book that was preserved for that length of time without suffering some change. As for your question, what can this lead us to? First of all, it can affirm every Muslim on his belief that the Quran is the word of the Creator in its divine purity, and that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the seal of that long chain of messengers and prophets that were sent down for the guidance of man. It can be a very suitable language to talk to others today, because, as I said earlier, we are living in an era of scientific and technological advances that are not paralleled throughout human history by any phase like it. So science is the language of the time. And if we can use science to prove to disbelievers and agnostics and people who are shaky in their beliefs that this is the word of God, we have done to ourselves and to the world a great deal of good.
I have a question, my dear doctor. In the time when the companions were present and they heard these verses speaking about the cosmic verses, how did they understood it? And did they say we readily accepted it, and they didn't have any knowledge about these scientific facts?
Yes. No, they didn't, because as I said earlier, Arabia at the time of revelation of the Holy Quran was a Bedouin culture, more or less. People are running after their own herds. There were only few settlements in the whole of the peninsula. And that's why there was no schooling, no education, no scientific research, no telescopes, no astronomical studies. But one of the most beautiful aspects of the Holy Quran is that the verse comes in a few words. And these few words would be as plain as as plain as anything to anybody who hears them. So a Bedouin in the desert will understand something out of it. And a scholar at any higher institution of today will understand a much wider meaning of it. And these meanings in between integrate without any contradiction. And to me, this is one of the most important and most distinguishing features of the glorious Quran. And let me give you an example. We read in the Quran what Allah says, وَالْأَرْضَ بَعْدَ ذَلِكَ دَحَاهَا أَخْرَجَ مِنْهَا مَاءَهَا وَمَرْعَاهَا. And Allah, after that, the verses are talking about the creation of the universe. And after that, another phase, وَالْأَرْضَ بَعْدَ ذَلِكَ دَحَاهَا. Allah has expanded the earth. And then says, أَخْرَجَ مِنْهَا مَاءَهَا وَمَرْعَاهَا. And He has gushed out of it its own water and its own pasture. So a Bedouin in the desert would listen to these two verses, will say, oh yes, I see the springs gushing with water in the desert, and I see the desert covered by a green blanket once the rain falls on it. Nowadays we see in these two verses a much wider meaning. science has proved that all the water on the earth, almost 1,400 million cubic kilometers of water, all was expelled from within the earth. All the water, all that immense quantity of water was actually gushed out within volcanic activity. Because it has been proved that more than 70% of all the gases that come out from volcanic vents are actually water vapor. And the second most important gas that comes out from volcanic vents is carbon dioxide. And carbon dioxide is the basic element from which Allah has created all the food chain we are living on. He has given the green plant the capacity to take some of the energy of the sun and use it for analyzing water to its elementary components, hydrogen and oxygen. It releases oxygen and retains hydrogen, and then analyzes carbon dioxide, which it takes from the atmosphere, to its basic components, carbon and oxygen, releases oxygen and contains carbon. And by the energy of the sun, it can bind carbon and hydrogen into a long chain of carbohydrates, sugars, starches, cellulosic material, and the rest. And this is the basic element of all food on the surface of that planet. So you can see the beauty of the Quran. The verse comes in few words. Any person, at any place, at any time, can see a meaning in it. And these meanings can expand with time to cover all the human knowledge without any contradiction in between. So one adds to the other, one adds to the other. If a Bedouin says, I see the springs gushing with water in the desert, it's true. I see the desert covered by a green blanket once rain falls on it, it's true. So if Allah says, أخرج منها ماءها ومرعاها, Allah has produced out of it its water and its pasture, He's absolutely correct. And when I say now that recent scientific advances have proved that all the immense quantity of water, which Allah has endowed the earth with 1,400 million cubic kilometers of water, so to the extent that science called the earth the blue planet or the watery planet, because we don't know of any other planet that was endowed with that immense quantity of water. So this water, all of it, you see the power of the Creator. He has produced it from within a zone of weakness in the earth, with molten rocks, with heat that exceeds 1,000 degrees centigrade. So all the water actually gushed out from this together with volcanic activity. And then carbon dioxide as the basic material from which Allah has created all kinds of food for us. So I can see how the companions of the Prophet ﷺ received these verses, because they could see something in it which was absolutely fitting to their knowledge, absolutely fitting to their environment, absolutely fitting to the standard of information available at the time.
So therefore you were saying that we have to continue look at these verses.
Definitely.
We have to look at these verses in order, because a simple meaning
Yes.
in the time of the Prophet
Sallallahu
Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam could mean a book today.
Yes, definitely. This is absolutely true. And to me, this is one of the most striking features of the glorious Quran. One of the most beautiful features in the glorious Quran. The verse comes in few words, and then you find many, many meanings unfolded out of it. And these meanings never contradict. They add one to the other. They add one to the other. No.
Yes, these things, Doctor, really for us as regular Muslims, alhamdulillah, we have faith, but
Yes.
exactly as you're saying, it's affirming and emphasizing our faith more and more, and we know that we are on the right path.
Indeed,
Yes.
indeed. You see, we are living today in a very strange world, a world where the Western culture is trying to dominate the rest of the world by hook or by crook. And unless you have enough evidence, first of all, to fix you in your faith and make you stronger and have enough argument to defend your faith, and at the same time to convince the others with it, you have really, we must be the guides for others, you see. The Quran says, وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَاكُمْ أُمَّةً وَسَطًا لِتَكُونُوا شُهَدَاءَ عَلَى النَّاسِ وَيَكُونَ الرَّسُولُ عَلَيْكُمْ شَهِيدًا. Allah is telling us, we have made you a middle nation so that you can be a witness on others and وَيَكُونَ الرَّسُولُ عَلَيْكُمْ, and your prophet or messenger will be a witness above you on the day of judgment. So we have to guide others, and we cannot guide others except in the language they can understand, which is the language today is the language of science.
Yes. Thank you very much, Dr. Zaghloul Al-Najjar. We were very honored to have you with us.
Barakallah feek.
And inshallah, to the next episode. Thank you.
Bum, bum.